to Sports Scope, the most influential sports talk show in the nation.
What is today, the 19th?
Stay tuned for updates and great sports content.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Real Sports Scope. I'm your host, Robert Butler, and I just noticed Mason Rudolph is in the game for the Tennessee Titans. So, good job. Good job, Bill. Brian Callahan, Mason Rudolph, one pass, one attempt, 5 yards. So he just now came in there. Good. I don't know what happened there. I'm watching it on my phone as I was preparing for the program. Looks like Tennessee. Rudolph just threw another one. Okay, good. Thank you, Brian Callahan. You know, step up. I mean, the guy's he's already got one interception this game. At some point, you got to sit him down, let him gather his thoughts a little bit, and get back to the drawing board. Go out there and get you another quarterback. Okay, got a great show with you for tonight. Sorry about that interruption. Going to talk about the Ravens. They've found an identity. Chargers, how impressive were they considering all the injuries that they have? And, of course, Karl Anthony Towns. Don't let me forget, major trade there in the NBA. Something that big. Normally, I would never talk the NBA on September 30th, but that is a major trade here. Plus a few announcements after the break about really good upcoming guests coming up later on this week. I got another excellent week here for you. So let's take our first and only break. I'll be back here after a few quick announcements, and we'll hit the ground running here on the Real Sports Scope. Hello, Sports Scope followers. The program has seen tremendous growth since going 5 days a week. I just wanted to thank everybody for your cash contributions and sharing the program with friends and families. Just a reminder, if you want to contribute to the program, go to the Cash App, the cash sign, and Sports Scope. There are other ways to contribute to the program listed at the bottom of the screen. If you want to advertise on the program, go to Sports, that is Sports with an S, another S, Scope, SKOPE, at gmail.com, just like it's listed at the bottom of the screen. Thank you and enjoy the program.
I'm Mac, CEO of National Streaming Sports and host of the Mac and Jack Sports Show. You're watching the sharp-dressed man and the big story breaker, Robert Butler, on Sports Scope, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern on National Streaming Sports. Thanks. To get the National Streaming Sports channel on your Roku TV, channel search National Streaming Sports. There's the channel search in Roku. There's our logo right on the right, NESSP. Tap on the logo and it will add to your TV, the channel to your TV. On your laptop, tablet, and mobile phone, download the free Roku app and channel search just like above. If you don't have Roku TV, you have to order a Roku device from the Roku store, hook it up to your smart TV, and bang, you have Roku TV. Again, channel search, National Streaming Sports, click on our NESSP logo, and add the channel. National Streaming Sports is brought to you in part by BetUs.com, designed for true fans. NFL odds, Week 1 and futures, college football odds, including Heisman Trophy favorites and playoff odds, NBA odds of division winners and playoffs, Major League Baseball playoff and World Series odds, the National Hockey League Conference playoffs and Stanley Cup odds, and boxing wagers. Betting opportunities include versus the spreads and outright winners, also during the game. Use our link on our website, nessp.info, the Bet Us Opportunities webpage, for a 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits. Must be 21 years old, and remember, Bet responsibly.
All righty then. I was just reading over some notes here off the X out that you've got Tyler Huntley versus Mason Rudolph in a Monday night football game. So apparently Will Levis is in the medical tent. He's in the medical tent there, and Rudolph he had Tennessee in field goal range, and then the quarter ended. So this is one of those deals where if a guy plays great, you just keep him in at this point. I mean, that's 8 turnovers in 4 games. That's 8 turnovers in 4 games by Will Levis at some point. If he comes out of the medical tent, put him back in the medical tent and just keep him in there, not unless Rudolph gets hurt and he can return. That's my opinion. That's the way I play it. Just lose patience with a guy like Will Levis at some point who's already got another turnover in this game. Okay, did not go live to talk about that. I was just reading that as it happened in real time, folks. That's why I wanted to go ahead and do the show tonight, because I knew the game would be unwatchable. Okay, Titans are better with Levis in the tent. That's what I'm saying, Pickles. So Kansas City, LA Chargers, as I said last Friday, Chiefs caught another big break in this game. Joe Alt, Rashawn Slater were out of this game. Joey Bosa was out in shorts and a sweatshirt. Darwin James suspended. And, of course, Justin Herbert had a sprained ankle. And check this out. They were up by 10 points in the first quarter, and they held on to that lead and held on to that lead. It tells you coaching is a big, big deal in the NFL. And I'll get to that a little bit later with the Denver and the New York Jets score game there. But, I tell you what, 80% of coaches in this league with those injuries, including the coach last year that coached for the LA Chargers, would have got totally demolished 31-7. That just wasn't the case with Jim Harbaugh. I mean, he's got those backups buying in like nobody's business, if you ask me. And I've never been so impressed with the team with that many injuries. I don't know if I would have taken and played Herbert, considering the fact they'd have a bye week. I would have gave him that full game off to fully recover, plus the bye week, plus the time leading up to the other game. But I guess they felt like he was good enough to go. We know that Patrick Mahomes won a Super Bowl going against playoff defenses with the high ankle sprain, one of the great feats in NFL history. That being said, it is what it is. It is what it is. This Chiefs team, this Charger team will be deadly. If they can get both Alt and Rashawn Slater back, these guys are not on season-ending injuries. They have the bye week. It couldn't come at a better time. Most of the time when this happens, when you have a bye week at week 5 and 6, I think it's terrible for a team, especially when you're playing 18 weeks there, where you got an 18-week season, 17 actual games there. So not in love with that per se, but I will tell you, it couldn't come at a better time when your quarterback is banged up and your 2 tackles there. When your 2 tackles there are banged up like that they are right now, you're right in your left tackle. When, Colin Cowherd said something about Rashawn Slater's been hurt every year. Maybe that's why they went on and got Joe Alt. They know they can plug him in at left tackle or right. He's been playing right. If you have to plug in Alt at left when he comes back, then you can probably live without doing Slater there. You know what I'm saying? But they've got a bye week next week coming up. Then they play at Denver. We know Denver's not an easy out, but they're coming off a bye week, and there's a good chance they could have both of these guys back. They will have Darwin James back, and they very well may have Bosa. Nobody's really on technically IR per se with this Charger team. But look, they play teams like Denver, They've got the Saints at home. Cleveland's totally demolished. They play Tennessee, and they'll probably beat Tennessee no matter who they got in there at home. They play a banged up Cincinnati team on the 17th. So they've got a really good slate there from week 6 to about week 13, where they got to go play at Atlanta. Now, Atlanta may give them a little bit of a hassle there, but they end the season against Tampa at home, Denver back at home in San Diego or in LA, and then at the Patriots, who very well may be playing Drake May at that point, and then they play at the Raiders. So they can potentially end the game on a 4-game or end the season on a 4-game winning streak and slide right into that playoffs. And I'm telling you, they're going to be a dangerous team if healthy, in my opinion. I'm really, that's a main take ahead of that game. And of course, the other big news is Rashid Rice. He's going to get multiple opinions. They think it's an ACL. Ian Rappaport has not given a clear cut. He says he cannot get a clear answer whether or not Rashid Rice has got a torn ACL or not. Either way, he's going to be out a while for this Kansas City Chief team. Okay. He's definitely going to be out for a while with this team. I do think that injuries are starting to catch up with the Chiefs now at this point. They're going to have to make a move and get another receiver. Hollywood Brown's done for the season. You really can't depend that much on a rookie there and Xavier Worthy and expect to do the things that they're trying to do. I mean, you just cannot depend on this guy. He's going to be good in the future, but he's a very thin guy. He could come up injured at any point at this time. So they're going to have to make a trade and come off one of those picks there and get another wide receiver. They got 2 options right now. From what I see, financially, it makes more sense to go after Amari Cooper from the Cleveland. He's making about $600,000 on the cap hit. He's 30 years old. Not a bad pickup there. Not a bad pickup. Now, Tennessee's plan right now, I think, in my opinion, and their stats are very similar, although Hopkins is 2 years older. They did want to get Hopkins, and for whatever reason, they could not offer the money. If Tennessee could eat some of that money, if they could eat some of DeAndre Hopkins' money, which I've got that number written down here, I want to say. They could eat some of that money. Hopkins is in the last year of his contract, see. They could potentially get that 3rd round back that they gave Kansas City in the L'Jarius Sneed trade that they made at the beginning of in the offseason here to bring over the cornerback there. So possibly Tennessee eat part of that money. Now, of course, he's already played a few games. They're not going to be. It's about $10 million, but they could possibly work that out. He's a big game player. They're trying to three-peat. If I'm Brett Veach, I'm trying to get into the history books. But the flip side of it is you've got guys like Travis Kelce, who's probably going to retire. You're going to need your picks. But then you got to look at Rashid Rice will be back next year. He'll be back next year. You have another 3rd round pick. So it's not the end of the world. You haven't gave up your 1st or 2nd round pick per se. You can always put together something and maybe move up. But Hopkins would be a very good fit with the Kansas City Chiefs. The Titans aren't going anywhere. Plus, they're not going to – I wouldn't re-sign Hopkins at 32 with a young quarterback anyways. Hopkins would love to get a ring, at a shot at getting a ring. I think he'd fit in really well with the Chiefs. And that Xavier Worthy, he goes over the middle. He's a pretty good route runner. He had a touchdown last week. and I think he's got a few catches tonight. He can showcase that here tonight. The trade deadline is November 5th. I know it's election night. Everybody's like, hey, it's on election night. Hey, that's just when it is. It's been moved up a week. It used to be around Halloween, but it's moved up a week, and that's good. It gives the teams another opportunity since the season's 1 week longer. The way this Titans team's playing, they should be sellers right now at the trade deadline and think about getting another quarterback. And the Chiefs, who do look good, they do look good. They're alternating their offensive line. They do look good. They should be buyers. That's probably going to get made with Amari. Cooper's not quite the blocker that everybody wants him to be. So I don't know if they're going to go after Cooper or not. He would make more sense financially. They wouldn't have to give up a third-round pick. They only gave up a fifth to get him. They robbed the Cowboys of Amari Cooper, by the way. They robbed the Cowboys of Amari Cooper, by the way, in that trade, actually. It was a good trade for the Cleveland Browns at the time. I totally forgot. I've got so distracted tonight. There's so much going on. Big announcement. John Restano will return to the program on Wednesday, 30 minutes past the program. I'm going to ask him about this Knicks trade. Going to ask him about the Buffalo Bills. I'm going to talk about in just a minute. And we're going to go over Caleb Williams. What does he grade Caleb Williams' first season? What does he think of this Bears team? They got a big win over the Rams, who have a tendency to get kind of pushed around on the road against physical defenses like the Bears. Get his take on all that and more. John Restano be on Wednesday. He is awesome. Love John. He is one of my favorite guests here. And Thursday, Ralph Williams will be back on the program. Ralph Williams, who really knows the Steelers forwards backwards and sideways. And I'm going to ask him about the AFC North. What does he think? Does Ralph Williams, who I'll probably talk about tomorrow, the Cleveland Browns in depth, does he think that the Browns will trade Deshaun Watson and divvy out some of his contract if they continue to free fall? So that's tune in to that on Thursday. Ralph did a radio show there. I think he's got another radio show coming up in Pittsburgh next month, which will be tomorrow sometime or another. Ralph Williams will be on Thursday. Love Ralph. He's great. Met him through Jeremy Ballrick, and then through Ralph, I met Scott Morgan-Rolfe, who's awesome too. So tune in. Got a great week. And, of course, Friday, I'll have the Mad New Yorker on. I was going to put a guest on Tuesday, but I got a lot of other stuff I want to cover. It's a really interesting congratulations to the Braves. My dad sent me a text. The Braves are in the playoffs, and so are the Mets. The Mets clinched. So I think the Mets won game one, Braves won. I don't know. But either way, kudos to those two NL East teams. A lot to cover. I'm all over the place tonight, folks. I know. So anyways, Chiefs, go out and get your receiver. I'd probably make a move, go after Hopkins, but that's just me. But I understand if you go out and get Cooper, you're going to have to do something. I know Rashid Rice is wanting to get a second opinion. But either way, he's going to be out for a sustained period of time. And Patrick Mahomes is a magician, but there's only so many magic tricks that he has dealing with an aging tight end and a rookie wide receiver. If you really want a three-peat, you've got to go out and make that move. Desperate times call for desperate measures, okay? All right. Okay, the Ravens. The Ravens have absolutely, folks, found their identity. They have found their identity. You know, there was some identity theft going on last year. Then they went out and found their identity. Remember that movie, Identity Theft's really funny. The woman stole that guy's identity. The Ravens with, last night, Derrick Henry, looks like Tennessee's up 3-0. Derrick Henry looked like the old Derrick Henry. Matter of fact, the last two games, Derrick Henry looked like the Derrick Henry that last night, 199 yards, 1 touchdown. And, of course, he caught 3 catches for 10 yards. The guy's got some good hands. I've seen him here in Nashville. Three catches, 10 yards, and a touchdown here for the 30-year-old running back. That first big run was a flashback of 2021, 3 years ago, Monday Night Football, Buffalo Bills fans, of Derrick Henry running a similar run back for the Titans against the Buffalo Bills. The Titans win a wild shootout, 34-31. They stopped Josh Allen on a 4th down goal line stand there and win the game there. 3 touchdowns that night for Derrick Henry. Had 2 last night. Helped me out on a fantasy game there. Won a wild one there. Derrick Henry has had, 199 yards. Then you go over to the Dallas game just a week ago. He had 25 carries, 150 yards, and 2 touchdowns there. This guy is running like a man possessed. So that's 4 touchdowns in the last 2 games, but that's also 49 carries. That's old school, ain't that, Pickles? 49 carries for Derrick Henry. They ran for 274 yards against Dallas. Last night, I want to say they ran for a similar amount, 271 against the Buffalo Bills. That's your identity. That's your identity. Lamar Jackson had 6 carries for 54 yards and a touchdown. The key for Derrick Henry and this team is, can you sustain this? Can you? I mentioned the 2021 game when Henry was with the Titans against that was back in about October of 3 years ago against the Miami Dolphins. A few games later, he ends up hurting his foot, folks. Guys, gets a foot injury, misses the last month or so of the season. He comes in after the bye week. Tennessee gets the 1 seed, and he's not up to par against the Cincinnati Bengals. And Tennessee ultimately loses that game when they should have stayed with Deontay Foreman, who was the hot hand and in better football shape for that particular game. They probably could have used him in the AFC Championship game. That and 3 interceptions by Ryan Tannehill cost Tennessee a shot really to get to the Super Bowl that year. But my point is, how does John Harbaugh manage Derrick Henry's carries? He's going to have to do some load management, but using a basketball term here with Derrick Henry. He can't run him like this all the time. I know Henry wants it every time. I know he wants to be one of those throwbacks, but at his age there, and they still got to play the Steelers twice. They're going to rough him up. Okay. They still got divisional opponents to play. It's not a walk in the park. They got to play Cincinnati next week, who they'll probably punk out, but Cincinnati will give them all they can handle. They got to play the Chargers. They've got to play Philadelphia. They've got to play Houston. And I've already mentioned Pittsburgh twice. Pittsburgh's going to rough them up, Pittsburgh's pretty physical. That's the only team that really matches up with them from a game-by-game basis. No matter what, they match up really well with this Baltimore team. So the juggling that John Harbaugh's going to have to do between these other running backs they have. I know the other guy's kind of Justice Hill, wherever his name is. I know he's small, but that's maybe they add another running back at the trade deadline as well. But they're back. They've had 3 offensive linemen they've replaced in the offseason. They've had 2 guys that were banged up coming into this game, including their center Lindbaum. He went on and played through it, and they still ran for 200-something yards against the Buffalo Bills. But this has to be the identity of the team. You're going to have to keep Lamar Jackson healthy, and you're going to have to find a way to manage his carries. But they can go a long way. I know they got off to a rough start. They just had a stinker against. They shouldn't have lost that Raider game. The Raiders only ran for 27 yards against these guys. Their run defense is really good. They still have a stout run defense, this Ravens team. I did not see that coming last night against the Bills here. Josh Allen, They had 81 yards, and 21 of that came from Josh Allen on the rushing himself. So Allen had won the last 2 games against Lamar head up. So I want to say they're 2-2 tied. They're tied 2-2, just in case you're keeping track of the 2 teams against each other. And I was beating Mad New Yorker by 3 games. And finally, I thought I was going to go up 4 games, but Buffalo got the Ravens handled Buffalo. So finally, he decides to go ahead and text me after he picks up 1 game the whole weekend. So go figure. I told him I'd bring it up on the air since because he always has amnesia. He's never watching the game if I'm winning. He never texts me when I'm kicking his butt. But I didn't hear nothing from him Saturday night when Alabama beat Georgia, nor did I hear from him when Notre Dame beat Louisville. So anyways, but no, so the Ravens are back in it. The defense is there. The running game's there. That's our identity. If you're a Ravens fan, you hold your breath that Lamar don't get hurt. You got to keep Lamar sliding, and you just got to load manage Derrick Henry. You've got to load manage Derrick Henry, and if all that works out, this team is going to sail in the playoffs. I think they're going to make it. I'm not sure if they'll get past Pittsburgh or not. Depends on what Pittsburgh does with their 2 quarterbacks. This is a story that I want to get in with Ralph Williams come Thursday. Make sure and tune in. Ralph knows the players and everything's work radio in and around the Pittsburgh area. He is really, really in tune with this team. Ralph said that he thought that Pittsburgh would sign Tomlin to 3 years, and then he's going to retire in 3 years from football and will probably do TV. He's great at TV. But anyways, we'll get into this Ravens. So that's my thoughts on the Ravens. Very, very impressive win. Run that rock, baby. I mean, and as far as the Bills are concerned, the injuries of Matt Milano, the linebacking core, they're really starting that particular game. The Ravens really exploited that, replacing 2 safeties in the offseason. Taylor Rapp was banged up, one of their starting safeties. You could see that. This is not the defense that played a few years ago when they beat the Ravens 23-20. I mean, they gave up 30-something. I mean, just totally annihilated. The rush defense was just not there. They're going to have to get some of these players back. They may have to add a player during the trade deadline. There's going to be some players available, I'm sure. So that's my issue with them. I think it was just injuries on the defensive side. I wouldn't be in total panic mode because the Jets couldn't catch you because the Jets lost, because the Jets lost. Pickle says he's their leading rusher in NFL. He looked like Eric Dickerson. That's who I was trying to think of. That's Eric Dickerson 1983 highlights, running up the field in the 1983-84 Super Bowl against the Washington Redskins there, if I'm not mistaken, Pickles. Eric Dickerson, when they were underdogs and they end up getting a big win there, the Raiders end up upsetting the Redskins there and winning that Super Bowl. I remember watching the big man run like the wind blows, Eric Dickerson, So, anywho, all right, they look good. They look good. I mean, you run the ball like that, you beat anybody, including the Kansas City Chiefs, if you could run the ball like that consistently. And the Chiefs just seem to have their number as of late. Also, side note here, I want to give Eric, a guy I gave a ride to. Eric, if you're watching, you said he was going to subscribe to the podcast. Eric from D.C., Maryland area. He's a Washington Redskins fan. He's a Nashvilleian, working Uber Saturday in a pouring down rain. Eric was good company, man. Eric was good company. Had to pick him up off of Vanderbilt and seemed really supportive of the podcast. So I want to thank you, brother, for supporting the show there and shout out to you, man. Everybody I meet up in while I'm doing Uber on Saturday or whatever, and I notice that they do subscribe. I do give them a good shout out. I greatly appreciate you, brother. Okay, now where do we go now? All right, let's go to New York. Jeez. I mean, at least the Mets clinch, folks, okay? I know the Giants are bad, and I know the Jets are bad. I destroyed the Giants on Friday with the Mad New Yorker. They lost 7 straight to Dallas. That's unacceptable. But if you feel better, Jets fans, it looks like that their pass rusher for Dallas is going to be out for a while. Looks like that their bad bleep pass rusher is going to be out for a little while. Last I checked, who is it? Micah Parsons. I digress. Okay, so the Jets. Now, I talked about coaching. Okay, talked about coaching. Jim Harbaugh, Pickle says Brandon Staley would have lost by 30 points. He says Brandon Staley, if he was still coaching that Charger team with all those injuries, no Derwin James, no Joey Bosa, no Joe Alt, no Rashawn Slater on both lines, they would have lost by 30 points. That would have been 35-7. It might be worse than that, okay? Robert Saleh is there's just no excuse with the fact, and I've said this before, I've talked about this with my dad, I've talked about this with you all. There's something about teams that come off Thursday games. I don't know if they have extra time to prepare. I don't know if they let it down too much on when they have that much time off, and they come back and they gain weight and their time is off. But teams that play Thursday, that play the next week, they should have extra time. For some reason, sometimes they don't play as well. But this Jets team, with Zach Wilson at quarterback and Breece Hall at running back, has smoked those Denver teams twice in Denver. And now Denver comes to the Jets with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. You know, maybe the Nathaniel Hackett stuff really gassed up the Denver Broncos, but their defense showed up and came ready to play. And Robert Saleh says, listen, we had too many penalties. He says he had a problem with the cadence of Aaron Rodgers. Now, why he would say that publicly beats all I've ever seen. I guess the same reason that he would talk about the same reason he would bring up the fact that Rodgers had an unexcused absence in the offseason. I told you that minicamp stuff was going to build up. He went to Egypt when they had a mandatory minicamp back in June. I wouldn't have did that if I was Aaron Rodgers. He should have came there. And now he said that he thinks that Rodgers, you know, at 319, they got 5 false starts there. That's 25 yards in penalties when you're in a cold, windy day. Remember, we had the remnants of that hurricane. By the way, want to thank all the owners and the volunteers. Thoughts and prayers for everybody dealing with this hurricane. This thing's turned out to be really bad down in the Carolinas and Georgia and everything. But anyways, they were dealing with the remnants of that hurricane, you know, and it was just a god-awful day for a football game. And Saleh is blaming Rodgers with that. So that things are building up, you know. Then on top of all that, Boomer Esiason says, now he works with WFAN, if I'm not mistaken, not unless he's moved. Last I checked, he's with WFAN up in New York there. And Boomer's saying that he don't think Rodgers, it's a big deal with the team. He just does not respect Robert Saleh. You know, he don't have a lot of respect for him. This is 1 week after they beat up on the Patriots last Thursday, and they look like world beaters. only to lose to the freaking. Think about it this way, folks. Denver had a fly to Denver. They came from Denver. They had to go to Tampa, which they beat the crap out of Tampa 27-10 or something like that. Fly back to Denver, then go back to the East Coast and play a well-rested Jets team. The Jets should have won that game 17-3. They should have beat that. They should have won that game like nobody's business. So now, as I mentioned before, folks, I thought this Jets team was going to get the very last wild card spot, and they still might. They found ways to accumulate pressure on the opposing quarterback, okay? Even the fact that they don't have Hassan Reddick, who he's never played there, and that's a Joe Douglas problem, you know? But my thing is they got to win games. I've looked at their schedule, and it's not a cakewalk. They got Minnesota next week, and Minnesota's the hottest team in the league. But it's at home. Well, it's not going to be at home. It's going to be in London. Who knows who's going to win that game? So that down, they got to go play Minnesota and London. Then they got to play Buffalo. Then they got Pittsburgh. So by the time they get to Pittsburgh, Rodgers may be knocked out for the season, you know. So my guess is Saleh's going to be the fall guy. I think maybe Joe Douglas survives this thing. I just got a feeling that if Saleh may be the fall guy here, and they'll have to get an offensive-minded head coach if Rodgers stays, one that Rodgers may respect. I'd go after John Gruden personally, but that's just me. You know, it had to be somebody with some experience that can deal with Rodgers if Rodgers don't retire at the end of this year and they just start over at quarterback. You know, but it's games like this. That you go back and you look and say, why'd you lose that game, man? I mean, we give you San Francisco, that you just can't lose to Denver at home. You've got to beat Denver. You got to beat Denver good. You got to beat them early, you know, and it was a penalty. So it's just Robert Saleh is going to be the fall guy here, you know. He's going to be the fall guy here, and I hate to be up and down on the Jets every single week, but, you know, they bring it on themselves when they start blaming cadences and stuff on the quarterback, you know. But maybe Rodgers was. Maybe that is the problem, you know. But they should have beat them. And like I said, rookie quarterback Sean Payton, Jim Harbaugh. See the difference in coaching. Believe it or not, folks, Denver's playing pretty good football, okay? They're playing pretty good football. They beat the Jets. They beat two teams with winning records. Look how good Tampa is. So I know Tampa was a little banged up last week. So they've got 2 wins now, you know? So Sean Payton's starting to get his sea legs with this new organization. Of course, you know, you got Bo Nix there. It's still learning on the fly. He's still a rookie quarterback. So you can give him much of a chance to open up your season at Seattle. That's a rough game for the Denver Broncos. But they're on a 2-game. What are they on, a 2-game winning streak or a 3-game winning streak? I have to go back and check. I don't see what they're doing. By the way, Tennessee and Miami, that's 6-3, like a baseball score. God help us. 6-3 in the second quarter there. But Miami's looks like Miami is kind of stalled out a little bit here. And Mason Rudolph is still I think it's Mason Rudolph here, folks, is still that quarterback here. I've seen a couple of field goals and no more interceptions, so it's got to be Mason Rudolph is still in there. Yep. Okay. Just checking. Going back to Denver. So, yeah, Denver is you know, they're doing a little bit. I thought they'd win about 5 or 6 games, and what I had, Yeah, they lost their first two, and they've won their last two. You know, they played Seattle and Pittsburgh, so that's not good. And then they've got the Raiders at home, and we don't know who the Raiders quarterback is. The Raiders don't even know who the Raiders quarterback is going to be, whether it's going to be Aiden O'Connell or Minshew. You know, so good for them. Good for them. Okay. So that is the football I'm going to cover tonight. As you can see, there's a lot more games out there to get to, folks. And Pickle says Levis is crying on the sidelines. Well, I mean, a shoulder injury. You tell the guy, do not dive, do not lean head first. That's why their quarterback is on concussion protocol and on IR for a month. That's Tua. I'm sure he dug down and leaned head first like I've been telling him not to, or saying he shouldn't do since preseason. But this definition of insanity is doing the same mistake over and expecting a different result, Pickles. You know, go figure. This guy, you know, not to be smart or be mean, but he comes off as an educated idiot, okay? I know he's really smart and all that, parents Ivy League, but he don't have a lot of common sense, Pickles. Robert Silas be looking for any excuse for losing. Pickles says, London game or anti-fan. Yeah, 8 o'clock in the morning. I mean, 9 o'clock Eastern. I mean, that thing will be at 6 o'clock on the – there's some people on the West Coast still be out partying and checking out when they get home from the nightclub. Levis is keeping his helmet on, hiding his eyes. Well, there you go. That's what his problem is. He's worried about how he looks and what people think of him rather than concentrating on being a better football player. I digress. All right. Now, listen, I don't talk to the NBA not unless it's something huge, you know. This Knicks thing is massive. I'm going to get a sip of water on this. Okay, so Friday night, late Friday night, Leon Rose, I think he's the general manager for the New York Knicks. And they made a blockbuster trade with the Minnesota Timberwolves to get the 29-year-old Karl Anthony Towns, the 7-footer that I thought that they really did need to put him in the middle. And Dante DiVincenzo, and of course Julius Randle, who seems to have been hurt often the last couple years. And when he's not hurt, he takes bad shots and does not fit in that offense with Jalen Brunson in the playoffs. He's way too perimeter shot taking. I want to say complacent, but that wouldn't be the right word. He's not really savvy. He's not savvy. Now, I do know a lot of you are going to say, well, Karl Anthony Towns like to do the same thing. He says, I'm the best three-point shooting big man out there. Now, that's something that Tom Thibodeau is going to have to work out and say, listen, man, we did not bring you in here to put you at that three-point line. We got plenty of those guys. We got plenty, including the guy running the point in Brunson. We need you to play down here, all right? We need you down low. We're not saying don't take that pop-up three on a fast break. You could still take that three. You just can't take as many. You got to stay low here, okay? So they traded Randall. They traded a first-round pick, and they traded Dante DiVincenzo. DiVincenzo says there's reports out here, multiple reports. I got mine from Legion's Hoops there, that DiVincenzo did not want this whole Villanova reunion thing. He wasn't happy with his role there with the Knicks. So, and I sent that to Carlos. I hope to get his opinion. And I'm going to talk about this Wednesday with John Rostano, huge Knicks fans, by the way. So, I think it's a very good trade. Listen, Randall's going to be 30. Anthony Towns is 29 years old. He'll be 29 next month. I like this trade for the Knicks. You know, Towns is 22-8, 22 points, 8 rebounds. That was last year. Played 63 games, and he was 23-11 for his career. But listen, folks, listen to this team. Listen to this lineup. This is a very good lineup here. You've got Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges. Remember, they got Mikal Bridges in the offseason. The Knicks are going to be rocking next month. That place is going to be loud. Not that they're not already loud. Madison Square Garden is going to be rocking. They went out and they also re-signed OG Anunoby, and now you've got Towns there. So you've got length, you've got defense, you've got big, you got rim protection. And of course, you might say, well, what about bench help and all that stuff? You worry about that stuff as the season goes along. All right. And I think this team, as constructed, can compete with Boston. I, without a doubt, think they can compete with Boston. Everybody knows what the $64,000 question is. I don't even have to ask you if you've been watching Knicks basketball over the last few years under Tom Thibodeau. They have to stay healthy. And Carlos is right about this. He cannot run this team in the ground. He cannot run this team in the ground. And come the second week of April, third week of April, when the playoffs start, you can't have 2 or 3 guys on IR. You can't have guys on 15 days or whatever, day to day. You can't have none of that. He's going to have to. This is turned into a negative term, but the truth of the matter is he's going to. It's kind of like Derrick Henry and John Harbaugh, right? He's going to have to manage these players right. He cannot run these players in the ground and expect to be the coach of the Knicks, even though he signed an extension in the offseason. Come 24 now. Come 25, 26, he cannot do that. He just cannot. He's going to have to utilize these players better. You've got to evolve as a coach at some point. You can't. Derrick Rose just retired. That may have been a little premature. He was drafted as a 19-year-old in 2008. Okay. Well, I guess 34. I guess that is. He did have a long time, but still, he often ran Rose in the ground. This team, the only reason they didn't get to the finals because they were totally decimated. Game 7, of course, towards to that Indiana team. So he's got to manage these minutes right. If they can compete with Boston, if they can compete with Boston, they can compete with Dallas or Denver or even Minnesota out west. And you said, what about Minnesota? Well, I don't know if Randall's going to fit in there. I don't know how long Anthony Edwards is wanting to play with this team. I do like their roster. I like their depth with Minnesota, but they've got, and I love Mike Conley, but he is 100 years old in basketball years, So they need to get young at point guard to help out Edwards, and maybe Randall will play a better role there in Minnesota. But I do like what Leon Rose, he's made 3, this is the general manager with the Knicks, 3 blockbuster trades there, So I do like what they're doing. But going back to Tom Thibodeau, if they get injured come playoff time, it's Thibodeau. And you're going to have to move off Thibodeau. I'm sorry. And I love the guy. I love his defense. I love his intensity. But at some point, you got to evolve and get over this hump here, okay? And if I am, what's this guy's name? I don't even know. If I am this owner here, I'm go ahead and make that move. Let me see. Next part 2. If I'm James Dolan, I called Jay Wright and I say, listen, man, I know you're 63. You've been out of college for a few years. Don't you want to be one of the few that has won a national championship, 2 national championships, if I'm not mistaken, and win an NBA title like Larry Brown did, who won with Kansas. I want to say Larry Brown, didn't he, Pickles? He won with Kansas and he won with the Pistons. You know, he's not too old. Ask Jay Wright, what do you think? You coach a lot of these guys at Villanova. You got a big here with a lot of talent. They are at the prime age, 29 years old. 29 years old. And you just you've got the team right now. You know, go ask Jay Wright, pick up a few bench players. I think they could push Dallas. They can definitely push Boston in the East. Now, I did read that Joel Embiid lost 30 pounds in the offseason, you know, and Joel Embiid lost 30 pounds. So the 76ers are going to be a lot better next year, you know. But and eventually, Wembanyama, he's going to get his. He's got Chris Paul, who's also 150 in basketball years, running the point there in San Antonio. So I do like this trade. Thibodeau's got to adjust his minutes down the stretch. If they got a bunch of injuries, you got to go off. You got to move off this guy. You know, he's just too hard-headed and too mule-headed. But Pickle says it's rare to win the NCAA and the NBA championship. But it can be done. It can be done. Jay Wright was just one guy. I know you've got guys like Sam Cassell, who's up and coming. Mark Jackson's out there. Still might want to get in coaching. So get back into coaching. So it's going to be an attractive. This is not the old Knicks team. With Brunson in his prime, he's extended. You've got Bridges there. Now you've got Towns here. I mean, this is a good team here, folks. This may be better than that 94 team that I thought they could very well beat that Rockets team. They lost in 6. There was just every game was very close there between Pat Ewing and Akeem Olajuwon. So speaking of big guys, man, the thoughts and prayers with the Mutombo family. No. Mr. Mutombo died at 58 years old. I didn't get the cause of death there for the former big man for the Denver Nuggets. I know he's played around the league for a little while. I remember him going back and forth with Michael Jordan. You know, Jordan, him blocking Jordan, then Jordan came back, dunked on him, and he did the no back to him. He had a lot of personality. I always liked the Dikembe Mutombo Pickles, who passed away today at 58 years old. You know, it makes me worry about a lot of the bigs that we like their personality. I worry about Shaq because his size, the Diesel 357 foot tall there. You always worry about the bigs who seemingly sometimes drop dead for various reasons. A lot of times it's heart issues and whatnot. Makes you worry about it, and you hate to see them go so soon at 50, not even 60 years old there. Not to curse Shaq, but I'm just saying I worry about the guys who do that. Guy had a lot of personality, though, man. He'll be missed. His son, I know he's had a son, talked about it and whatnot there. But anyways, thoughts and prayers there with the Mutombo family there, folks. So anyways, all right, folks. If you like the show, share the show. Tomorrow, I'll be giving thoughts on these games. I'm sure the Seattle game is going to be good. Seattle, Detroit's going to be a good one. And I'll give you my Power 5 and whatnot. So anyways, I will see you tomorrow, same time, same place here on the Real Sports Scope.